Commander Hyunwoo stared at the view screen of his ship. The stars looked different here at the edge of the galaxy. They were fewer and farther apart. His ship, the Stellar Harmony, had been traveling for 6 months to reach this empty place. The Galactic Confederation had sent him here to map the last unknown areas of their galaxy. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. For 3,000 years, 12 different alien species had worked together to explore and map their home. They were almost done. Only a few star systems remained unknown. Hyunwoo had been doing this job for 20 years. He knew what to expect. Empty space, dead planets, maybe some old rocks floating around a dying star. Nothing interesting ever happened out here. His science officer, Dr. Ji-won, sat at her station checking the long-range sensors. She was young and still got excited about small discoveries. Hyunwoo liked her energy, even when she found nothing but space dust. "Commander," Ji-won said suddenly. Her voice sounded strange. "I'm getting some weird readings." Hyunwoo turned his chair toward her station. "What kind of weird?" Ji-won frowned at her screen. "Energy signatures that don't make sense. Really strong ones. Coming from a system about 2 days away. Strong how? Too strong. Way too strong for a natural source." Ji-won's hands moved quickly over her controls. "Sir, these readings suggest massive energy use. More than our biggest cities use." Hyunwoo walked over to look at her screen. The numbers made no sense. The energy levels were impossible for any known civilization. "Are you sure the sensors are working right?" "I ran 3 diagnostics. Everything is working fine." Ji-won looked up at him. "Commander, someone is using more power than should be possible. The Confederation had rules about first contact with new species. They had to report any discovery to the capital world first, then wait for orders. The process usually took months. But these energy readings worried Hyunwoo. Any species using this much power was either very advanced or very dangerous. Maybe both. "Set course for the system," he ordered. "But keep us at a safe distance." His crew looked surprised. They knew about the rules too. But they also trusted their commander. 2 days later, they arrived at the edge of a yellow star system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. Massive metal structures orbited the third planet from the star. Ships moved between them, some bigger than Confederation cities. Bright lights covered the night side of the planet like a spider web. Most shocking of all, they could see huge projects happening on other worlds in the system. "How many people live here?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. Ji-won checked her sensors again. "Over 7 billion on the main planet. Maybe another billion scattered around the system." 7 billion? That was more than most Confederation worlds. "How do they feed that many people?" "They're not just feeding them, sir. They're expanding. I'm seeing construction on 6 different worlds, and something big happening in the asteroid belt." Hyunwoo looked closer at the screen. The asteroids were disappearing. Huge ships were breaking them apart and carrying the pieces away. "They're mining the entire asteroid belt," he whispered. This was impossible. The Confederation had learned long ago that such massive resource use led to disaster. Every species had to live within limits or they would destroy themselves. It was the most basic law of survival. Yet here was a species that seemed to ignore this rule completely. "Sir," his communication officer said, "we're being scanned." "By who?" "Unknown vessels. 3 of them approaching fast." On the screen, 3 sleek ships appeared. They moved with purpose and confidence. "No fear at all. Open a channel," Hyunwoo ordered. "Let's see who we're dealing with." The screen flickered and showed the inside of an alien ship. But the beings looked almost like Hyunwoo's own people. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They wore simple blue uniforms. A man with dark hair smiled at them. "Welcome to human space. I'm Park Tae-min, administrator of New Horizon Station. We saw you coming from pretty far away." Hyunwoo blinked. "You knew we were here? Our sensors picked you up 2 days ago. We were wondering when someone would finally visit." Park Tae-min leaned back in his chair. "Are you from the Galactic Confederation? We've been hoping to meet you. You know about the Confederation? We've been watching your radio signals for about 50 years. Learned your languages. We've been waiting for first contact." The human smiled wider. "Would you like to visit our station? We'd love to show you around." Hyunwoo felt confused. Most new species were afraid during first contact. They hid or ran away. These humans seemed happy about it. "We would be honored," he replied. New Horizon Station was unlike anything Hyunwoo had ever seen. It was huge, bigger than most Confederation cities. but it was also clearly new, built recently with fresh metal and bright lights. Park Taemin gave them a tour, talking constantly about human achievements. He showed them gardens that grew enough food for millions, factories that could build entire ships in weeks, power plants that turned matter directly into energy. "How long has your species had space travel?" Ji-won asked. "About 300 years, Park Taemin answered proudly. Ji-won stopped walking. 300 years? But your technology level suggests thousands of years of development." The human laughed. "We're fast learners. Plus, we don't really believe in limits." He led them to an observation deck that looked out at the solar system. Huge ships moved like ants between the planets. Bright flashes marked construction sites on Mars. Jupiter's moons glowed with artificial lights. "What are you building out there?" Hyun-woo asked. "Everything," Park Taemin said simply. "We're terraforming Mars, mining the gas giants for fuel, building habitats around Jupiter. In 100 years, this whole system will be full of human worlds." "But what about resource limits? Environmental balance?" The human looked confused. "Why would we limit ourselves? The universe is huge. There's more than enough for everyone." Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. This was exactly the kind of thinking that had destroyed countless species throughout history. Expansion without limits led to collapse and extinction. But as he looked out at the thriving human civilization, he wondered if maybe they were different somehow. During their 3-day visit, the crew learned more about humanity. They were young but incredibly aggressive in their growth. They took dead worlds and made them alive. They saw problems and solved them with amazing speed. They treated the entire universe like it belonged to them. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be succeeding. "We should report this immediately," Ji-won said on their last day. "The Confederation needs to know about this species." Hyun-woo agreed. But as their ship left human space, he couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. The humans were breaking every rule the Confederation lived by. They should have destroyed themselves long ago. Instead, they were thriving like no species he had ever encountered. As the stellar harmony jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home with news that would change everything, Hyun-woo wondered if the Confederation was about to meet their greatest challenge, or their greatest teachers. The report he would file would be the first domino to fall. Soon the entire galaxy would know about the humans at the edge of space, and nothing would ever be the same again. The news from Commander Hyun-woo's mission spread through Confederation space like fire. Dr. Ji-won's detailed report landed on desks across 12 different worlds. The numbers she had recorded seemed impossible. The energy readings, the population size, the speed of their expansion, it all pointed to a species that should not exist. Ambassador Soo-jin read the report 3 times before she believed it. She had spent 40 years handling first contact situations. New species were usually careful, scared, or both. They lived within their means and respected natural limits. That was how intelligent life survived. But these humans were different. "They use more energy in one day than most of our worlds use in a year," she said to her assistant. "How are they not extinct?" The Confederation Council called an emergency meeting. Leaders from all 12 species gathered on the capital world to discuss this discovery. They argued for days about what to do. Some wanted to quarantine the humans immediately. Others thought they should study them carefully. A few suggested they might be lying about their capabilities. In the end, they decided to send Ambassador Soo-jin to make formal contact. But her real mission was intelligence gathering. They needed to understand how dangerous these humans really were. Soo-jin's ship, the Peaceful Dawn, arrived at human space 2 months later. This time, a dozen human ships met them at the border. They were even bigger than Commander Hyun-woo had reported. "Welcome back," came a familiar voice. Park Taemin appeared on their communication screen again. "We're honored that the Confederation sent an ambassador. We're pleased to establish formal relations," Soo-jin replied diplomatically. "We hope to learn more about your fascinating civilization." The humans gave her a much longer tour than Hyun-woo had received. They seemed proud to show off their achievements. Dr. Kim Sang-ho, their head scientist, took her to research stations throughout the system. "This is our terraforming project on Mars," he explained as they watched massive machines reshape the planet's atmosphere. "We should have it ready for full colonization in about 50 years. 50 years. The Confederation's fastest terraforming project had taken 800 years. How is this possible so quickly? Soo-jin asked. "We don't wait for natural processes," Dr. Kim explained. "We speed them up." Heat the planet, add oxygen, seed it with life. Nature is slow, but engineering is fast. They visited the gas giant mining operations next. Huge platforms floated in Jupiter's atmosphere, pulling up materials and energy. Engineer Lee Da-yun explained how they plan to eventually harvest the entire planet. Won't this destroy the planet's natural balance? Soo-jin asked. Lee Da-yun looked puzzled. Jupiter is just a big ball of gas. It's not alive. We're putting it to good use. This thinking shocked Soo-jin. The Confederation saw planets as living systems to be protected. Humans saw them as resources to be used. But the most disturbing discovery came when she visited Earth itself. The planet was covered in cities, but they weren't overcrowded or polluted like she expected. Instead, they were clean and efficient. Vertical farms grew food in towers that reached the clouds. Clean fusion reactors provided unlimited energy. The oceans were full of fish and the air was clean. How do you support so many people without destroying your world? She asked Dr. Choi Min-seok, their environmental engineer. Technology, he said simply. We don't take from nature anymore. We improve it, make it better than it was before. He showed her forests that grew faster than natural ones, fish farms that produced more food than wild oceans, weather control systems that prevented disasters and optimized rainfall. We're not destroying Earth, Dr. Choi explained. We're upgrading it. This was the opposite of everything the Confederation believed. They thought technology should work with nature, not replace it. But Earth looked healthier than most Confederation worlds. During her month-long visit, Soo-jin attended meetings with human leaders. They spoke casually about projects that terrified her. Plans to build rings around their star to capture its energy. Ideas for ships that could travel to other galaxies. Discussions about creating new forms of matter that had never existed before. These are our long-term goals, explained Dr. Park Soo-jin, their head of strategic planning. We're thinking maybe 500 to 1,000 years ahead. What about the resources these projects would require? Soo-jin asked carefully. There are plenty of dead systems out there, Dr. Park replied. Billions of them. We'll use those first, then figure out more efficient methods. Soo-jin realized that humans saw the entire galaxy as their future home. Not just their solar system, not just nearby stars, but everything. They talked about consuming the resources of entire star systems, the way other species talked about mining asteroids. The final shock came during a conversation with Admiral Cho Yoon-ji, commander of human space forces. We know you're probably worried about us, the admiral said bluntly. Most species are cautious when they meet us. They think we're dangerous. Are you? Soo-jin asked. Admiral Cho smiled. Only to problems that need solving. We're not conquerors. We're builders. If other species want to build alongside us, great. If they want to stay where they are, that's fine too. But we're not going to stop growing just because it makes others nervous. This was the heart of it. Humans had no intention of slowing down their expansion. They were going to keep growing, keep consuming, keep building until they filled the galaxy. On her way back to Confederation space, Soo-jin reviewed all her recordings and notes. The picture they painted was both amazing and terrifying. Humans were not just another species. They were something completely new. They had found a way to grow without destroying themselves. But their growth required resources on a scale that could reshape the galaxy. She thought about Dr. Choi Min-seok's casual comment during their last meeting. He had mentioned their slow expansion phase, describing their current growth as careful and measured. When she asked what a fast expansion would look like, he had laughed and said they weren't ready for that yet. The idea that this incredible growth rate was considered slow by human standards kept Soo-jin awake during the long journey home. Her report would be even more shocking than Commander Hyun-woo's had been. She had hard data now. Population numbers, energy consumption rates, production capacity, expansion timelines. The numbers told a story that the Confederation would find hard to believe. In less than 1,000 years, if they maintained their current growth rate, humans would have consumed the resources of hundreds of star systems. In 5,000 years, they might control an entire galactic arm. The question that haunted Soo-jin was simple. What would happen when an unstoppable force met the Confederation's immovable object? As her ship crossed into Confederation space, she began writing her report. Each page painted a clearer picture of a species that refused to accept limits. They saw problems and solved them. They saw emptiness and filled it. They saw the impossible and made it real. The Confederation was about to face its greatest challenge. Not from conquerors or destroyers, but from builders who dreamed too big and refused to dream smaller. The galaxy was about to change, whether it wanted to or not. Ambassador Su Jin's report hit the Confederation Council like a bomb. The detailed numbers, the recorded conversations, the evidence of humanity's massive expansion, it all painted a picture that terrified the galaxy's leaders. President Yang Hoseok called for an emergency session within hours of reading the report. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the Great Council chamber on the capital world. The mood was darker than anyone could remember. These humans consume more resources in a single year than some of our worlds use in a century, President Yang announced to the assembly. At their current rate of growth, they will strip mine hundreds of star systems within 1,000 years. The chamber erupted in worried voices. The Alterans, a species that had spent millions of years perfecting harmony with nature, were horrified. Their representative, Elder Kaisu, stood with trembling hands. "This is madness," Elder Kaisu declared. "No species can grow like this without destroying everything around them. They are cosmic vandals who will consume the galaxy itself." But the Nexari military representative, Commander Bexcor, saw things differently. His people had spent centuries trying to become the galaxy's greatest warriors. Now they had discovered a species that treated war like engineering. "Look at their achievements," Commander Bexcor argued. "They have solved problems we thought were impossible. They have turned dead worlds into gardens. They have found ways to expand without destroying themselves. For now," Elder Kaisu shot back. "But what happens when they run out of empty space? When they need resources that belong to others?" The debate raged for days. Some species wanted to declare humans a galactic threat. Others wanted to study them more carefully. A few quietly wondered if humans might be right about unlimited growth. Meanwhile, news of humanity's existence had leaked beyond the council chambers. Across Confederation space, ordinary citizens learned about the species that refused to accept limits. The reactions varied wildly between worlds. On peaceful garden worlds, people were terrified. They imagined human ships arriving to strip mine their carefully balanced ecosystems. Children had nightmares about machines that ate planets. On struggling colony worlds, the reaction was different. People who had lived with scarcity for generations wondered what human technology could do for them. They imagined abundance instead of careful rationing. The fear spread fastest among the Confederation's scientists and philosophers. For thousands of years, they had taught that wisdom meant living within natural limits. The idea that unlimited growth might be possible challenged everything they believed. Dr. Kang In-ha, the Confederation's leading archaeologist, found herself studying ancient ruins with new eyes. She had spent decades examining the remains of extinct civilizations, learning the lessons of species that had grown too fast and collapsed. But something bothered her about the pattern. Every few million years, she found evidence of a species that had tried rapid expansion. They always disappeared after a brief period of incredible achievement. She had always assumed they destroyed themselves through overreach. Now she wondered if something else had happened to them. Dr. Kang requested access to the deepest archives on the capital world. She spent weeks reading reports that were millions of years old, studying species that had existed before the Confederation was even dreamed of. The pattern became clearer the deeper she dug. Every few million years, a consumer species appeared. They expanded rapidly, built incredible structures, achieved impossible things. Then they vanished, leaving behind empty star systems and mysterious artifacts. What disturbed Dr. Kang was that they didn't seem to destroy themselves. Their homeworlds weren't poisoned wastelands. Their space habitats weren't collapsed ruins. They had simply moved on, leaving behind clean, empty systems as if they had packed up everything valuable and left. Where had they gone? Her research was interrupted by news from the border regions. Confederation long-range sensors had detected massive fleet movements in human space. Hundreds of ships were gathering at the edge of their territory. Admiral Yoon Jae-sung, commander of the Confederation's border fleet, was ordered to investigate. What he found confirmed everyone's worst fears. The humans were preparing for war. Admiral Yoon's intelligence officers had intercepted human communications. The humans knew about the Confederation's debates. They had detected the fleet movements as various species positioned their forces just in case. The humans had decided to prepare accordingly. "We cannot allow them to take the first shot," Admiral Yoon reported to the council. Their industrial capacity means they will outbuild us if given time. We need to act now while we still have superior numbers. President Yang Hoshok found himself facing an impossible choice. The Confederation had been peaceful for over 2,000 years. They had never fought a war against another intelligent species, but the numbers in Ambassador Su Jin's report were clear. If humans continued their expansion unchecked, they would eventually need resources that belonged to Confederation worlds. The collision was inevitable. On Earth, Admiral Cho Yunji was having similar conversations with human leaders. Their deep space sensors had detected Confederation fleet movements. It was clear that first contact had not gone as well as they had hoped. "They're afraid of us," she explained to the Human Council. "They see our growth as a threat to their way of life." Dr. Kim Sang-ho, still optimistic about peaceful cooperation, suggested sending more diplomats. "Maybe if we explain our intentions better, show them that we're not a threat to occupied worlds." "We are a threat to their entire worldview," Admiral Cho interrupted. "They've spent thousands of years believing that limits are necessary for survival. We prove that wrong just by existing." The human response was characteristically direct. If the galaxy saw them as a threat, they would prepare to defend themselves. But their idea of defense was typically human in scale. Project Prometheus was activated within weeks. Human engineers began converting gas giants and remote systems into temporary fusion reactors. The energy released would power humanity's entire civilization for decades while also serving as a clear message to anyone watching. Humans could ignite stars if they needed to. Dr. Kang In-ha watched the first stellar ignition from the Confederation's Deep Space Observatory. The light from the artificial star reached them months after the event, but its meaning was clear immediately. Humans had just demonstrated the power to reshape solar systems on demand. They weren't just another aggressive species. They were something that could rewrite the fundamental rules of galactic civilization. As reports of more stellar ignitions reached Confederation space, panic began to spread. These were not the actions of a species that wanted to coexist peacefully. These were the actions of a species that expected to dominate. But Dr. Kang's research suggested a different interpretation. She had found references to similar events in the ancient archives. Previous consumer species had also ignited gas giants and built megastructures that seemed designed to intimidate, but they hadn't used these powers to conquer other species. They had used them to prepare for something else, something that had taken them away from the galaxy entirely. The question that kept Dr. Kang awake at night was simple. If humans were following the same pattern as the ancient consumer species, what were they preparing for? And when they were ready, would they simply leave like the others had? Or was humanity different in ways that would change everything? As both sides prepared their fleets and the galaxy held its breath, one thing became clear. The age of careful balance and sustainable growth was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin, whether the galaxy wanted it or not. The only question remaining was whether that age would end in ashes or in something unimaginably greater. The first shots of the war came from a misunderstanding that nobody could stop. Admiral Yoon Jae-sung commanded a blockade fleet of 300 ships at the edge of human space. His orders were clear: prevent human expansion beyond their current territory. The Confederation Council believed they could contain humanity's growth through superior numbers and technology. They were wrong about both. The human response fleet was smaller, only 50 ships. But when Admiral Yoon's sensors analyzed them, his hands began to shake. Each human ship was the size of a Confederation city. Their energy signatures suggested weapon systems that defied known physics. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "the humans are requesting a meeting." Admiral Yoon agreed, hoping diplomacy might still prevent bloodshed. The human commander appeared on his screen, General Park Soo-bin, a woman with calm eyes and a confident smile. "Admiral Yoon," she said politely, "we know why you're here. We'd like to avoid unnecessary conflict." "Then stop your expansion immediately," Admiral Yoon replied. "The Confederation cannot allow your species to consume unlimited resources." General Park's expression didn't change. "Admiral, we've been expanding for 300 years. Asking us to stop now is like asking you to stop breathing. It's not possible." "Then we have no choice but to enforce the blockade." "You're welcome to try," General Park said quietly. "But understand that we treat warfare as an engineering problem. We will solve you." The transmission ended. 30 minutes later, the war began. Admiral Yoon expected a conventional battle, fleets facing each other across space, exchanging fire until one side retreated. Instead, he watched humans rewrite the rules of combat in real time. The human ships didn't attack his fleet directly. Instead, they disappeared into nearby asteroid fields and began building. Within hours, the asteroids themselves became weapons. Rocks accelerated to incredible speeds, hammered his ships while human forces stayed safely hidden. "How are they doing this so quickly?" his tactical officer asked in panic. Admiral Yoon had no answer. The humans were using their industrial capacity as a weapon. They didn't just fight. They manufactured victory from raw materials. The Confederation fleet retreated after losing 40 ships to an enemy they barely saw. But the humans weren't finished demonstrating their capabilities. Over the next 6 months, human forces systematically dismantled every Confederation outpost within 50 light years of their border. They didn't destroy the stations, they improved them. Bigger docks, better sensors, more efficient power systems. Then they staffed them with human personnel. General Park Soo-bin sent regular reports to Confederation Command, politely explaining their modifications. Each message ended with an offer to return the stations whenever the Confederation was ready to discuss reasonable terms for human expansion. The psychological warfare was more effective than direct attacks would have been. President Yang Hoseok mobilized the entire Confederation military in response. Over 2,000 ships from 12 different species converged on human space. It was the largest military force in galactic history. The humans met them with Project Prometheus in full activation. Commander Lee Hyun-soo had spent months preparing for this moment. His engineering teams had converted gas giants in 17 different systems into temporary fusion reactors. The energy output was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. When the Confederation fleet arrived, they found human forces powered by artificial stars. The battle that followed lasted 3 days and changed warfare forever. Human ships moved with impossible speed, their energy weapons powered by stellar-level reactors. But more disturbing was their adaptability. Every tactic the Confederation tried, humans countered within hours. Energy shields that should have been impenetrable were bypassed by weapons that altered local physics. Communication networks that had worked for thousands of years were infiltrated and turned against their users. Dr. Ryu Ji-min, directing human weapons research from a mobile laboratory, treated each engagement as a chance to test new theories. Her teams developed gravitational weapons that compressed enemy ships into dense metal balls. Temporal distortion fields that aged enemy hull materials by centuries in minutes. The Confederation forces weren't fighting an army. They were fighting an entire civilization that had turned war into applied science. By the end of the first week, Confederation forces had lost over 800 ships. Human losses were less than 30. The pattern of every engagement was the same. Humans would analyze enemy tactics, develop counters, then implement improvements faster than their enemies could adapt. Admiral Yoon, now commanding the remnants of the Confederation fleet, sent a desperate message to the capital. "We are not fighting a war. We are watching an experiment. They are learning from us." The truth was worse than Admiral Yoon realized. Humans weren't just learning Confederation tactics. They were learning Confederation technology. Every captured ship was stripped down and analyzed. Every weapon system was improved and reproduced. Every defensive measure was studied and countered. Commander Lee Hyun-soo's engineering teams were having the time of their lives. Each new piece of alien technology was a puzzle to solve, a system to optimize, a design to improve. They approached enemy weapons the same way they approached asteroid mining, as interesting challenges with practical solutions. Within months, human ships carried weapons based on Confederation designs but improved beyond recognition. Alteran energy projectors became planet-cracking cannons. Nexari shields became reality distortion barriers. Zephyrian communication systems became galaxy-spanning command networks. The war escalated beyond anyone's imagination when humans began their most ambitious project yet. Dr. Song Mi-ra, leading a research team in the outer system, announced that they had discovered how to harvest energy directly from black holes. The implications terrified both sides. If humans could tap the energy of collapsed stars, there would be no limit to their power. They could reshape entire galaxies if they chose to. But the most shocking development came when Confederation forces began to surrender not out of defeat, but out of curiosity. The first defection happened in the Kepler system. A Confederation science vessel, surrounded by human forces, was given an unusual choice. Instead of demanding surrender, General Park Subin offered the crew a tour of human facilities. Dr. Velmore, the ship's Alteran captain, expected to see military installations designed for conquest. Instead, he found research stations working on problems that had puzzled galactic scientists for millennia. Human teams were developing faster-than-light communication systems. They were designing habitats that could support billions of people around any star. They were creating terraforming technology that could turn any planet into a garden world in decades instead of millennia. "Why are you showing us this?" Dr. Velmore asked. "Because we're not trying to conquer you," explained Dr. Choi Min-seok, now directing human-alien cooperation programs. "We're trying to show you what's possible when you stop accepting limits." More Confederation ships began requesting surrender tours. What they found changed their understanding of the war entirely. Humans weren't fighting to destroy the Confederation. They were fighting to force evolution. Every battle was designed to push Confederation forces beyond their traditional limitations. Every victory was meant to demonstrate possibilities that had never been considered. The war had become humanity's way of teaching the galaxy that sustainable development wasn't wisdom, it was fear. As star systems burned with the light of artificial suns and fleets clashed across hundreds of light years, a new understanding began to emerge. This wasn't a war between species competing for resources. This was a war between two different ideas of what intelligent life could become. The Confederation represented the wisdom of careful balance, sustainable growth, and respect for natural limits. They had survived for thousands of years by accepting that some things were impossible. Humanity represented the madness of unlimited ambition, exponential growth, and the belief that any problem could be solved with enough energy and creativity. They had thrived for 3 centuries by refusing to accept that anything was impossible. The galaxy was burning, not because humanity wanted to destroy the old order, but because they wanted to prove that a new order was possible. As the war entered its second year, both sides began to realize that this conflict would not end with victory or defeat. It would end with transformation. The only question was whether that transformation would save the galaxy or consume it entirely. The war ended not with surrender, but with understanding. Dr. Velmore, the Alteran scientist who had been among the first to tour human facilities, found himself in an impossible situation. His homeworld was under human occupation, but the occupation was unlike anything in galactic history. The humans hadn't conquered Altair Prime. They had upgraded it. When human forces arrived at his world, Dr. Velmore expected destruction. The Alterans had spent millions of years perfecting their harmony with nature. Their cities grew like living trees. Their technology worked with natural processes. Their entire civilization was based on balance and sustainability. Instead of destroying this careful balance, the humans studied it. Within months, they had improved on designs that had taken millennia to perfect. Alteran biocities that had housed millions now supported billions. Natural energy systems that had powered continents now powered entire worlds. "We're not here to replace your way of life," Dr. Song Mira explained to the stunned Alteran Council. "We're here to show you what your way of life could become without artificial limits." Dr. Song had become humanity's first galactic development coordinator, a position that didn't exist before humans arrived. Her job was to help other species reach their full potential using human methods and human energy. The results were impossible to deny. Alteran worlds that had supported the same populations for centuries suddenly bloomed with abundance. Their careful environmental balance wasn't destroyed. It was amplified. Forests grew faster, oceans produced more food, and the planet itself seemed to come alive with new possibilities. Similar transformations happened on every world under human administration. The proud Nixari military found themselves building space habitats larger than planets. The scholarly Keplerians developed technologies that made their ancient libraries look like children's picture books. The Industrious Centauri began mining projects that dwarfed their previous achievements. None of these species had been conquered. They had been shown what they could become. President Yang Ho-seok, now working directly with human administrator Lim Dong-hyun, struggled to understand what had happened to his galaxy. The Confederation had been replaced by something that had no name yet, a cooperative of species working on projects that would have been impossible, alone. "You didn't defeat us," he said, to Lim during one of their regular meetings. "You transformed us." Lim nodded thoughtfully. "Defeat would have been wasteful. We saw potential in your species that you couldn't see in yourselves." The transformation wasn't limited to technology and industry. The entire philosophy of galactic civilization was changing. The old belief in sustainable limits was being replaced by a new understanding of unlimited growth, guided by intelligence. Dr. Kang In-ha, the archaeologist who had studied ancient consumer species, finally understood the pattern she had discovered. The previous civilizations hadn't destroyed themselves through overreach. They had evolved beyond the need for their home galaxy. Her research took on new meaning when human teams began their most ambitious project yet: preparation for intergalactic travel. Captain O. Sehun commanded the first joint expedition beyond the galactic rim. His ship, the New Dawn, carried representatives from all 12 former Confederation species alongside human crew members. Their mission was simple in concept, but revolutionary in scope: find other galaxies and offer them the same choice humanity had offered the Confederation: evolution or stagnation, growth or limits, the future or the past. As the New Dawn prepared for its historic journey, reports came in from across the galaxy. Every former Confederation world was reporting achievements that had been impossible just years before. The Alterans had completed their first stellar engineering project, carefully reshaping a dying star to extend its life by millions of years. The Nexari had built their first ring world, a structure that surrounded an entire star and provided living space for trillions. The Keplerians had developed faster-than-light communication that could connect any 2 points in the galaxy instantly. Most remarkably, these achievements were being accomplished without the environmental destruction that the Confederation had always feared. Human guidance had shown each species how to grow beyond their limits while improving rather than damaging their worlds. The secret, Dr. Song Mi-ra explained to the Galactic Assembly, was energy. Unlimited clean energy from stellar engineering, black hole harvesting, and matter conversion made almost anything possible. When energy was abundant, scarcity became a choice rather than a necessity. "The universe is vast beyond imagination," she told the gathered representatives. "There are more resources in our galaxy alone than every species could use in a billion years. The only thing that limited us was our thinking. But the greatest revelation came from humanity's own transformation. Working with other species had changed humans as much as they had changed the galaxy. Alteran biotechnology had been combined with human engineering to create living ships that could grow and adapt. Nexari military discipline had been merged with human innovation to produce defense systems that protected entire star systems. Keplerian knowledge had been integrated with human energy to build educational networks that could teach anyone anything. Each species had contributed something unique to the whole, creating a civilization that was greater than the sum of its parts. As the New Dawn crossed the boundary between galaxies, its crew carried more than just the knowledge of humanity. They carried the combined wisdom of 13 species working together toward unlimited growth guided by intelligence and cooperation. Their message to the distant galaxies they would find was simple: the universe was large enough for everyone's dreams, as long as those dreams were big enough. Back in their home galaxy, construction continued on projects that would have seemed like madness just years before. Rings of artificial worlds around every star, networks of matter transmission that could move entire populations instantly across galactic distances, stellar engineering projects that would keep their suns burning for trillions of years. The galaxy burned brighter than ever before, but not with the fire of destruction. It burned with the light of species finally reaching their true potential. Dr. Kang In-ha, now elderly but still studying the ancient mysteries, made one final discovery that explained everything. In the deepest archives, she found a message left by the first consumer species, the one that had existed millions of years before humanity. The message was simple: we have learned to transcend our galaxy. We leave these tools for those who will follow. May you surpass us as we surpass those who came before. Humanity wasn't the first species to break through the barriers of sustainable limitation. They were part of a pattern that stretched back to the beginning of intelligence in the universe. Each consumer species learned to grow beyond their galaxy, then moved on to help others make the same transition. The cycle would continue. Humanity and their allies would eventually move beyond their own galaxy, leaving behind tools and knowledge for the next species to discover the truth, that limits existed only in the mind, and the universe was waiting for intelligence brave enough to embrace its full potential. As Captain Osehun's ship disappeared into the space between galaxies, carrying the light of transformation to distant worlds, the citizens of the Confederation's former territory looked up at skies bright with artificial stars and realized they were living in the age of miracles. The age of careful balance was over. The age of unlimited possibility had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, other civilizations waited to learn that they too could reach beyond their fears and touch the infinite.